Good morning. There have been a lot of questions pertaining to the creation of Orgonite and the way I have been doing over the years. Now, rather than write over and over the materials as well as the steps, I decided to come up with this video so it can just be referred to for future use. So I will explain what you see in the desk. I will tell you about the process, and you can easily replicate this on your own. So for Orgonite, first thing that you would need would be a mold, obviously. The mold would hold the materials that will solidify into Orgonite. On the desk, you would see the different metals and crystal powders, which I will explain to you. Now, these will all be held together by polyester resin, aqua resin, or epoxy resin. It really is your choice. You see, the basic components of Orgonite is an organic and inorganic material. The metals and the crystals here are inorganic. The polyester or aqua resin is the organic material. You need to procure yourself at least a gallon or a liter of the polyester resin and its catalyst or hardener. Typically, the ratio of the catalyst to the resin itself is about 2%. So for a whole gallon of resin, you would mix 2 or 3 drops of the catalyst. You get yourself a blender to mix it very well. I use a Hanabishi electric blender. Now, back in the day when we used to produce a lot of Orgonite for clients and ship them out in mass, what we do is we put the following ingredients in. And because we use very powdered materials, it's like the capacitor effect. The tinier the material, the more surface area explored to the resin. You don't need the 50-50 ratio that you see in the old-time Orgonite forums or websites. In this case, you would need only 10 to 20% of the powders that you see here to the resin. Any more than that, you would end up with rubber, and that would be terrible. So I have a mixing cup, and from each of these materials, I would get about half a tablespoon and push it into the mixing cup. From the mixing cup, I would mix it really well, and I would pour it into the polyester resin mix, which is about 1 gallon. And after I blend that very well, I would then pour it into the mold. So let me go over each of the different powdered materials. First, we have the base. This is red iron oxide. Red iron oxide is probably the reason that you see that much of the Orgonite that I and Jovet, my partner, have been creating for about 15 years is red. It is very energetic. It's got an earthy and warm tone to it. Now, for really large items like when we create radionic machines encased in Orgonite, such as this one, this is the shell for an ultra-rad godcaster, which we no longer produce. We need to mix a lot of the heavier materials. In this case, this is coarse copper grain. When the material is coarser and larger, the heat would be absorbed by the copper grain and the bigger materials to prevent cracking of the Orgonite. In the same manner, we can also have for the larger materials, the larger chi generators or Orgonite, aluminum oxide grains as well. This would absorb heat and dissipate it, preventing cracking from the material. Now, if the material was not too big, like if we were creating a mere disc charge of Orgonite, we would then use coarse or finer aluminum grains. This is almost powder. And aluminum is also known to be energetically very healing. We don't use in the pretty and double terminated crystals unless when specified the clients back in the day. We use powders of rose and crystal quartz. The beauty of this is it disperses well throughout the matrix, creating the current flow that should be present within Orgonite, and the etheric push out of chi is far better. This is what you would put last if really required. It's just a double terminated quartz crystal. If you see on Amazon or Etsy all those pyramid Orgonite pieces with large crystals inside, it's really for show. You would notice that if you were to create your own, if you have a powdered quartz versus a single large quartz inside, the Orgonite would be a lot stronger if you used the powdered crystal. And here we have a huge bag of my favorite, shungite powder, straight from Russia, from the mountains of Kerala. Most folks would think this is expensive. No, it isn't. When you have shungite powder inside, you bring in a whole host of healing effects. Shungite is known to purify blood. It can be very antibacterial, and it has a very high level of energy if you were to use the biogeometry pendant or pendulum to douse it. This is another highly recommended inclusion into Orgonite, so another half tablespoon of this into the mix. Kyanite. Kyanite is a higher vibration, tends to lead to a lot of nice effects in your Orgonite as well. Wrapped in this because it's a little bit dangerous to have it exposed. It's no, not uranium-235 as some might have seen in the older products that I used to create, but these are very high-powered magnets. So I would put neodymium magnets into the Orgonite mold. It creates a very nice push-pull aside from the matrix itself. And here's where it gets really interesting. Twisted wire. This is the Triskelion. Every piece that I have created has one of these. Yes, it takes a long time, so I had laborers create twisted wire that is in the 1 cubit length. Putting this into Orgonite creates even more structured water. So you may have seen the videos where the water is creating vortex forms. It's because of the Orgonite and this. And naturally, we have the tensor rings. This specifically is the 764 megahertz tensor ring. What it does also is it creates, it allows you the capacity to direct the flow of energy. From sacredmeasures.com, it's not my website, you would see that they have found that with this specific ring inside your Orgonite, you can direct whether one side of the Orgonite will have a vortex and one side will have a black hole. Now I don't have the raw rings that I normally put in, which are uncoated and which do not have the balls, but these are representative of what I would put into Orgonite as well if they don't want the 764 ring. This is the empowerment ring discovered by Slim Sperling. It helps with etheric and mental healing as well as the connection of your astral and your physical self. This is the very basic sacred cubit. Of course, we don't put it this big unless the Orgonite piece is gigantic. Sacred cubit is awesome for healing the physical body. And for those who are after the mental and psi aspects of rejuvenation, this is the lost cubit, perhaps the most powerful cubit that can be found in the tensor field technology. During the mixing of all of these items using a blender, I tend to have it mixed back in the day within a very large tensor field. So this tensor ring, which you can see is made of very hefty 8 American weight wire, gauge wire, infuses all the items being mixed together with a very high vibratory state. So this is how we do it, and should the client back in the day request for other items like MWOs or the sensor discs of Patrick Flanagan, I throw them in as well. But for my personal use, I don't really throw in all of these other discs. I just use the basic materials that you've seen on this desk, as well as the tensor rings and the triskelion. Other items add incremental signatures to the Orgonite, but they are unnecessary. What you see now before you is a quantum scalar imprinting plate. I have around 5 of these. These are the QS30 and the PW60 models. Before I release the Orgonite for use, I would leave the completed Orgonite, as you see here, on the plate and program it either for 528 Hertz or for 432 Hertz. These are very healing energies that when placed permanently into Orgonite and imprinted, it will carry the field wherever the Orgonite is taken. Now when you do Reich healing and Reich frequency treatment, you can also consult the manuals of the Reich technologies to ascertain what other forms of frequencies you want modified and placed into the Orgonite. You can also use the different rate books from Copen and from Delaware, which are freely downloadable from Bercano Labs, to infuse the Orgonite with. The big question now is, what precisely can you do with Orgonite? Does it live up to the hype that we see on the internet and on the different forums where we see amazing testimonials? There are things that Orgonite can and cannot do. Let's talk about what it can do. For one thing, I found that Orgonite to be very, very therapeutic. Keep it under your pillow, you put it next to a damaged body part, and you will heal very rapidly. If you were to have a hard time sleeping, keeping Orgonite with these materials in it underneath your pillow will get you over your insomnia very rapidly. If you had swollen arms because of football practice and you were to tape a piece of Orgonite next to it, the swelling would go down rapidly again. Orgonite has a very awesome effect in water, as you might have seen from previous videos. When Orgonite is placed not even within the water itself, but within about 2 inches away from water, and the water is frozen, the water will react and it will form vortex formations that tend to be very unique depending on what material you put into the Orgonite. So it can spiral, it can form shapes of crystalline snowflake, or it can even look as insulting as some of the water forms that I have received. Sometimes the water that I have looks like a tadpole or a penis. So the effects are varied. It also changes the taste of the food, especially if you have an earth resonance tensor ring inside. Well, this is not an earth resonance tensor ring. This is a 764 megahertz ring. You will notice that the water or the food would taste truly awesome. Now, if you were to use the empowerment qubit ring within your Orgonite, no matter what you put on the Orgonite would go flat. The taste would go terrible. You would have absolutely no flavor or tactile sensation from the food or water. That I find odd, but hey, that's the way things are. And here's a question that most people have. How does it help with the law of attraction or manifestation? Orgonite powers our mind, and apparently those folks who have been into Tai Chi, Aikido, Kung Fu, the meditation on the chakras, as well as Kundalini Yoga, the energy that is manipulated by all these traditional disciplines is Qi. It is also known as Tachyon, Ki, Prana, and it is also known as Orgone. Orgonite is precisely called Orgonite because it causes condensation of the energy around your body. And to create an impact on your reality, you simply need to have a lot of this surplus energy around you. So simply having an Orgonite pendant or an Orgonite tablet around you would increase that level of energy. The larger the Orgonite device you have, such as this, the more impactful the flow of energy into your body and the more usable energy to create a manifestation effect. Now, to properly throw all that energy into the future and to create a reality out of it, this is key. When you are holding on to your Orgonite case or meditating, you must see what you want as reality as already there and happening. If you were to see your reality as happening into the far future, or you're talking in terms of wills and shoulds and shalls, it will never happen because your brain is forcing these things to happen in the future, and you will never reach that future. So, if you want something right now, you have to think and imagine of it as happening in the present moment. So for instance, if I were to say that my goal were total healing of my cancer, and you were to manifest that using Orgonite and your traditional manifestation techniques, you would first create a sigil about it, write down your desire, and then chant over and over, I am now healed, I am now running, I can breathe properly, I can do martial arts, I am doing martial arts, I am consuming all the foods that I always can back in the day and even today. Word your desires in the present, create a vivid imagination of what you want in the now, and see, hear, and feel it in the now, and you would have created that reality right now. All you have to do is to wait for it to already happen and to claim it. So this is the short tutorial that I've created to describe how the Orgonite and the manifestation, basic manifestation is done, at least by myself and those who are close to me. You can simply replicate this process by procuring the same materials, or you can procure your own alternative materials. There are a lot of lists out there, but for me, testing this over 20 years of creation, I've found this to be the most effective. Thank you for watching this video. Welcoming the comments and the usual questions below.